team pretty much picks itself every week and they just need an arm around them and play a bit better football. That would have been a job for Potter. Not, hey, I've got 14 new players. He's got to play because he cost 120. He's got to play because he cost 95. He's got to play because he's a fan's favourite.
Yeah, but he's not a big enough character like Ten Hag to come in and say, Ronaldo, $500,000 a week, don't care, sit on the bench. You know what I mean? He's not that guy. And that's why you can't be at big clubs if you don't have that about you, because you will get taken for a ride. That's what happened with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at Man United. He wanted to be everyone's mate. You can't have that. Do you know what I mean?
Who's going there, Rants? Who realistically, I mean, we said this last week. I mean, there's lots of rumours now that they want to talk to Poch. I mean, is Poch a big enough?
They might as well go and get Jose back, bruv. I'll be honest. He's probably the best suited manager, for the shit show at that club. Do you know what I mean? Because he'll be able to put egos in check and do that kind of stuff. He's probably their best bet.
Take him, Rants? Do you think they?
I think they would. I'll be honest. I think that Chelsea fans would welcome him back. I think they would. Do you know what I mean? I just think that someone like him, they need a pragmatic manager right now that can just get the best out of what he's got until they need someone to stabilize, innit? Like, that's what Jose will come in. He will come in and he will just find a system.
Yeah.
He will find the best way of getting the job done, even if the football's not great. And then he'll be back to the drawing board in the summer. But they need a manager like that. That's what they need. They don't need someone with loads of bright ideas and like 5 at the back out of possession, 4 in possession, all that shit, bro. You don't need all that, man. Just play a fucking formation that stays the same, innit?
Basic.
Like, that's what I mean. Like, just do that. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, they're overcomplicating the game. It fries my head, bro. Like, honestly, like, I'm not trying to make football management sound easy, but in my opinion, it's not as difficult as some of these men are making out.
I agree. I mean, look, the other question is Jose going to leave Roma? Because by all accounts, whatever we think of him, he's done a really, really good job that's gone under the radar as Roma manager. He took over when they were 7th or 8th. He won them the Conference League, got them. They're still in the Europa League. They're currently 3rd in the Italian league. So that will be, if they get Champions League football, he'll have won a European trophy, plus got them back to the Champions League. For Roma, that's bloody good, isn't it?
And what does Jose do? Jose goes into every club, and the first thing he does is make them hard to beat.
Of course.
Chelsea are not hard to beat right now. Do you know what I mean? And this is where you start. Ten Hag's done the same thing at Manchester United. He's made us very hard to beat. I think we've had 19 clean sheets this season or something like that. That's absurd, bro. Like, you make teams hard to beat. When Arteta went to Arsenal, the first thing he did was he was playing 5 at the back, trying to make them harder to beat. Like, you always need to start by making your team hard to beat, and then you build from there. Do you know what I'm saying? So while you're leaking goals like Chelsea, you can't even be thinking about the next stage because you can't even stop the bleeding.
Well, the thing is as well, like a few people in your chat now have said Enrique, and that name gets thrown about a lot. But for me, Enrique's not the manager to go into Chelsea
to stabilize. No, he's the one that comes in when it's stable.
Yeah, Enrique's the one that comes in and goes, right, I've got a good squad. Now let me get them playing my tiki-taka way of football. At the moment, you're spot on, Rants. Chelsea need I know some of these managers won't happen, but a manager in this ilk, they need an Ancelotti. They need a Jose. They need a Simeone. As much as I don't like that style of football, that club needs that so that they can go in, make them hard to beat, arrest the bleed, and forget this year. People keep talking about, they're 14 points off top 4. Forget top 4. This is not... They need to stabilise. They need to just get a few wins by hook or crook.
Yeah.
And stay in the top half of the table. But listen, I think, it's going to be... I watched the game, Chelsea v Dortmund. I don't know if you saw it. They were actually very good, Chelsea. But the same old story, Rants. They can't finish their dinner.
Can't buy a goal.
They cannot buy a goal. Honestly, the closest they got to scoring against us yesterday, I can't think that Fraser Forster had too much to do. Do you know what I mean?
No, yeah.
I genuinely can't. And even like at 1-0, I was sitting there with my mate who's Spurs as well. And he was like, oh, you know what we're like, never trust us. I was like, yeah, but these lot could play all day. We could go down to 5 men. They're not scoring a goal. And the only time they looked dangerous, Rants, the only time they looked semi-dangerous was when they brought Mudryk on with about 8 minutes and he started to actually try and whip balls into the box. Because Sterling don't whip balls in. Sterling wants to cut in and shoot. Ziyech wants to cut in and shoot. Havertz is never in the penalty area.
Yep.
And I think they missed a trick, right? I'm glad they did, but I think they missed a trick. You had Emerson Royal on a yellow card, right? At half time, I would have bought a Mudryk if I was them and just said, run at that guy. Every time, get the ball to Mudryk, let him run at Royal and get him sent off.
Yeah.
But he didn't. He waited till 10 minutes and then he brings on, I don't know if he brought on Aubameyang, but he definitely brought on Mudryk and Mount. And I don't know, it just feels weird. It's not Chelsea, is it?
It's not. It's not, man. Do you know what I mean? But that's what happens when there's too many changes at once. You know what I mean? You let a manager spend a few $100 million, break the transfer window record, and then sack him. Do you know what I mean? Then bring in another manager, spend loads of money. I don't know how much influence he had on these signings. Very little, I would imagine. Agreed. Do you know what I mean? And then on top of that, when you're a philosophy manager like Graham Potter is, you can't work in an environment where you're not even choosing your own players, because he's not a pragmatic manager. He's not a do with what you have kind of manager, which is why the likes of the Joses, the Simeones, the Carlos are the perfect guys for the project at Chelsea. Like, if you're going to back a manager, then you back a manager like what we did with Ten Hag. You know what I mean? Where you say you can have the players that you want. And even if we have to pay over the odds for them, Anthony, Lissandro, even if we have to pay over the odds for them, we're going to get you the players that you want. That is how you back a manager. If you're really going to back a manager, you don't just spend loads of money on players that you think are good based on their stats and then give them to a fucking manager and tell them to work with it.
Yeah, I think the difficulty as well, look, I don't think Potter's a bad manager. I just think, as you said before, there's levels to the game. And I think what Potter created at Brighton, it was very easy that, okay, we've lost Dan Burn. All right, I'll bring in the next guy. He slots into the way we play. Unfortunately, Chelsea need to develop a way to play before he can slot players in. Then when you add to it what you just said as well, like how many of these players he's signing off on, I can't imagine he's got more than, I reckon, listen, you're Potter, who's used to signing cheap players at Brighton that are steals, right? I can only imagine that when they're going, right, you want Mudryk for 90 million? He's like, yep, take that. You know what I mean? Like,
he's not going to say no.
Right, of course. So, look, I feel that we might be having a very different conversation about Chelsea in a year's time. Next season.
Yeah. In a year's time, Chelsea will be sorted. I don't envisage Potter won't be there, one. And two, this time next season, we're not going to be having Chelsea are going to be in the top 4 comfortably, yeah. And we're going to be talking about how dangerous they look and how deep their squad is. Because on paper, they've potentially got a very frightening squad. Like, if Joao Felix stays, and if he doesn't stay, they'll just spend loads of money. Yeah.
Well, you've got to remember they've got Nkunku coming in the summer, right? Which adds goals. Plus, if they go out and get listen, I don't get into a debate like an Osman, somebody that puts the ball in the net, right? If they go and get those 2 players and can arrest the bleed and actually have a summer working, I do worry about Chelsea.